All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. I was noticing my camera was kind of acting up before break, so I'm going to try to fix it here. So I apologize for that. All right, yeah, we're good now, I think. So we're back here on the GSMC football podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to recap the late window games from Sunday. And that'll be the third part of the show here. So, obviously, we talked about the Niners and the Eagles game already. So, we'll get into the other games. So, the first game we'll get into is the Panthers and the Buccaneers. So, the Panthers obviously, fired their head coach, Frank Reich. So, usually when that happens, I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of times when that happens, the team ends up playing better. The Panthers still didn't play great, but they definitely kept it close in this game. The Bucs did get a win. They finally got back to their, well, I shouldn't say their winning ways, but they got back on the right track, picking up a win, 21-18. Bryce Young was still not great in this game, 15-31, 178 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Chuba Hubbard had a good game, 25 carries, 104 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Mingo was their leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 69 yards in this game. But yeah, the Panthers just really, couldn't get anything going here. The Bucs, they weren't great offensively either. Baker Mayfield went 14-29, 202 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Rashad White had a good game, 20 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. Chris Godwin had a 19-yard touchdown run. Mike Evans, great game for him. He's had a great season. 7 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. He had that big 75-yard touchdown that had to get reviewed, but they ultimately ruled that he, the ball crossed the pylon as he was going out of bounds. So, he's had a great year, and now he has over 1,000 yards once again. One of the more consistent wide receivers in the NFL. But yeah, this game was boring. It was 7-3 going into the half. The Panthers actually had the lead at one point. They were up 10-7, but then the Bucs answered. That actually was the Mike Evans touchdown was the only play of that drive. I honestly didn't know that. But yeah, they reviewed it, and yeah, it ended up being a 75-yard touchdown. Then both teams traded punts, and then the Bucs scored another touchdown to put them up 21-10. And I was kind of hoping that would end up being the final score, but the Panthers ended up backdoor covering, unfortunately, in my spread pool. Because once again, I ended up with my typical 7, and if the Jags win and cover tonight, then that is going to be, I think, the 5th week in a row that I'm going to end up with 8 in the spread pool. So, but yeah, the Bucs pick up the win, and they got a big game against the Falcons next week. Right now they're 5-7. They got the Falcons, then they got Green Bay, Jacksonville, the Saints, the Panthers. So, the way Green Bay's been playing, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but, they got them, they got Jacksonville, they already lost to the Falcons. They got tough games on their schedule. So, if they are going to want to, win the division, they're going to need to win some of these tough games. So, but the offense hasn't been playing great lately. Baker Mayfield's turning the ball over. Mike Evans has been on a tear, though. But that can only do so much, So the Panthers, they dropped to 1-11. So the Bears, they still got the number 1 overall pick, and it's kind of funny because they were. I saw something that said like the Panthers still have a chance at winning the division. Obviously, a lot of things would have to go right for them for that to happen, but yeah, now they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. So yeah, it's just funny how I saw something that said that, and they lose on Sunday, and then it's like, yep, that's it. They have no chance now. They're completely eliminated. So now let's get into the next game here. Rams and the Browns. So Joe Flacco ended up getting the start for the Browns in this game. And honestly, he didn't play terrible. He went 23 of 44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Elijah Moore was their leading receiver in the game. Browns kept it close for a while. It was 20-19 at one point, but then the Rams kind of pulled away at the end. The final score ended up being 36-19, but the game was pretty close like the whole time. The Rams, like I said, pulled away at the end. Matthew Stafford had a good game, 22 of 37, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams had a good game. He had a late touchdown run, 21 carries, 88 yards. Puka Nacua was their leading receiver, 4 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. Demarcus Robinson had a touchdown in this game. The Chiefs could use him. 4 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 6 receptions for 39 yards and a touchdown. And yeah, that ended up being the final score. The Rams got a safety in this game. That was towards the end. But yeah, the Rams get to 6-6. Browns drop to 7-5. But yeah, I mean, Flacco, I thought didn't play, terrible. We were kind of flipping back and forth between the Niners game and Red Zone, so I didn't really get to watch the entire game. But I mean, for a guy that just got off his couch, to play, I mean, I don't think he played, terrible. But yeah, the Browns, now they've lost 2 straight. Play Jacksonville next week. We'll see, but it's kind of getting tough for the Browns to overcome a lot of the the injuries they've been dealing with. This team could still make the playoffs, but now you got to bring in Joe Flacco to play quarterback. It's it's tough. It's tough. What they've had to deal with now recently, but we'll see. I mean, they're still in a playoff spot right now, but that can change. That could definitely change because we'll get into it during the week, but there's teams that are right there that could easily pass them. And then for the final game, to recap, it's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Packers. So I did take the Packers in this game in the spread pool, 6.5-point underdogs. And the Packers ended up winning outright. Jordan Love, from start to finish, was great last night. 25 of 36, 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. A.J. Dillon was their leading rusher at 73 yards rushing. Romeo Doubs was their leading receiver, 72 yards receiving. Christian Watson, who actually had left the game with a hamstring injury, had 2 touchdowns in the game as well. The Packers offense played really well. Both teams scored on their first 2 drives, but the only difference was the Packers scored touchdowns. The Chiefs kicked field goals. Patrick Mahomes with 21 of 33, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Isaiah Pacheco had a great game, 18 carries for 110 yards and a touchdown, but he did get ejected for throwing a punch at. I believe it was Keyshawn Nixon that he threw the punch at. So he got ejected. Travis Kelce had 4 receptions for 81 yards. Rashid Rice had 8 receptions for 64 yards. Valdez-Scantling making his return to Green Bay, 2 receptions for 25 yards. Noah Gray had 1 reception, and that was the 2-yard touchdown that Mahomes threw to him. But yeah, I mean, the Packers get to 6-6, and now they have the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. But yeah, I mean, the first drive of the game, they went 13 plays, 75 yards, almost 8 minutes of time of possession down the field, and Jordan Love connected with Sims, one of their tight ends, because they have no Musgrave. He might be out for the year, I think, or he's at least going to miss some time. He's on IR. And then you have Tucker Kraft, who scored a touchdown last week against the Lions. But you also have another tight end who ended up scoring there, so that made it 7-0. Then the Chiefs went down the field. Butker kicked a 34-yard field goal. Then the Packers in the second quarter. Yeah, so both teams only 1 drive in the first quarter. Packers went down the field, 8 plays, 75 yards. Jordan Love connected with Christian Watson for his first touchdown to make it 14-3. Then the Chiefs kicked a field goal to make it 14-6, and that was the score at the half. Then the Chiefs, to open up the second half, went 9 plays, 75 yards, and Isaiah Pacheco scored a 1-yard touchdown to make it 14-12. They didn't get the 2-point conversion. Then the Packers, 7 plays, 67 yards. They went down the field. to make it 21-12. And Jordan Love on 4th and 1, right? On 4th and 1, they went for it, and Jordan Love just heaved up a pass, and it looked like it was going to get intercepted. It looked like it had no chance of doing anything. And Romeo Doubs made the catch. That was a 33-yard reception, and then that set up Jordan Love connecting with Christian Watson from 12 yards out to make it 21-12. And then the Chiefs went 11 plays, 66 yards. They went down the field, and Mahomes connected with Noah Gray for a 2-yard touchdown, and that made it. And then Butker kicked the extra point to make it 21-19. Both teams punted to open up the fourth quarter. Packers tacked on a field goal. Mahomes threw a pick. I thought I didn't think it was going to be a pick. I honestly thought nobody was going to catch it. And then Keyshawn Nixon made a great play on the ball to intercept it. Packers turned that into points to make it 27-19. And then the Chiefs could not score a touchdown at the end of the game. But there were some questionable calls in the game. There was where Mahomes got hit out of bounds. Well, he was still inbounds. He got hit, but they called it a 15-yard penalty. So that helped the Chiefs out. Also, Isaiah Pacheco, he got disqualified when he threw the punch. But yeah, so they didn't call the play on Valdez-Scantling because it looked like Valentine, he, jumped too early, and they didn't call it. And then, and then the Chiefs, they got down there, but Mahomes heaved it up, and nobody caught it, and that ended up being the game. 27-19. So the Packers improved to 6-6, and the Chiefs dropped to 8-4. But yeah, once again, the officiating was questionable in the game. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's why people question the integrity of the game, because you call flags on certain plays, and then there's other plays you don't. Especially when the play's right in front of you, everyone's talking about the horse, from last week, the horse collar tackle on Josh Allen. They didn't call that, and the official's standing right there. It's just, the officiating is bad. It's got to be more consistent, of course, too, but it's not going to happen. And Roger Goodell keeps saying how the officiating's great. There's no issues, but there are issues. So, but the Packers, now they're the 7th seed. And listen, I said earlier in the year, I thought this team was going to be a wild card team. And then it didn't look like that was going to be the case at all, because they had that rough stretch. I mean, losing to the Broncos, the Raiders. I mean, Jordan Love looked terrible. People are saying he's not the guy. But recently, he looks like the guy. He looks a lot more comfortable. He is in sync with his receivers. And this is a young team. You got so many guys that are, first year or second year players. I mean, all the tight ends they have, the receivers. I mean, Wicks and Watson and Dobbs are second year guys. Jaden Reed, who's become a good receiver for them. Really the veterans are the running backs. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones when he comes back. I mean, you get Aaron Jones back, and I mean, I think. Well, I don't want to say. I mean, if Aaron Jones can play, he's going to play. But if the Packers can continue to win games, I mean, maybe you tell Aaron Jones, listen, rest up, heal up, get yourself back to being fully healthy, and if they make the playoffs, that's when you bring him back. But we still got a long way to go. I don't want to say the Packers will definitely make the playoffs, because anything can happen. But right now, they look better than the Vikings. They already beat the Rams. They look better than Seattle. I mean, though Seattle just put up 35 points on Dallas this week. I don't know. We'll see. But that was a big win for them, especially. So now with that, we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to preview the final game of Week 13, and that is between the Bengals and the Jaguars. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.